grounds for believing that something good may happen. That's one way to define hope. Bonsai is an after-school program for families in need in Manta, Ecuador. We provide childcare, healthy meals, and homework help. But Bonsai goes deeper than that. We're about connecting with families and sharing hope through those connections. Bonsai focuses on 3 areas. We focus on education. We connect with local schools to select the families with the greatest need. Many of these children are years behind in school, so we connect with their teachers, working together to help them develop the skills and confidence to catch up. We connect with volunteer tutors to give our kids 3-to-1 individualized attention. Through these connections, we give children resources to help them succeed and in many cases, to break free from generations of cyclical poverty. Bonsai cultivates hope. We focus on healthy families. We give parents the opportunity to work, to provide for their families. We connect with them through home visits, listening, building trust, seeking solutions together. We connect families with resources like medical assistance, parenting seminars, and job skills and opportunities. Through these connections, we give parents the dignity of being able to work to meet their own needs and the assurance of knowing that they have an ally. Bonsai cultivates hope. We focus on Jesus. We share the good news of Christ with children and parents and connect them with the local church. We do this because we believe that Jesus is the source of all hope, and the church is his plan for sharing hope with the world. Bonsai cultivates hope. We have grounds for believing that something good may happen. We believe that because it's already happening.
Bonsai me ayudó a mí en mis medicinas y en mi mamá a sacar su local.
Con la comida, hacer las tareas, jugar, y me aprendió a leer bien. Y ahorita ya sé leer. Bonsai me ha ayudado a cumplir con mis tareas y a no estar sola en mi casa y a tener más amigos. El bonsai me gusta jugar.
Will you connect with us in cultivating hope with families?
Before Rachel continues, I just want to mention we decided to leave the children here, so there's not children's church. I intercepted the ones that were headed up. All right? Thank you, Rachel.
Good morning, everybody. Like Pastor Steve said, my name's Rachel Young. I am a junior at Grove City College. I'm a Christian ministries major, and then I have a Spanish minor and some other ministry-related minors as well. Grove City College is like 40 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, about an hour and a half from here. It's a small Christian college. And this morning I'm going to unpack my summer internship with you all. So I served for a month, almost 5 weeks in Manta, Ecuador, with the CMA through Envision under IncLink, which is in Envision. So they're all basically just ministries underneath the CMA. So 2 things you need to know about me before I talk about my trip. One, how I got to Ecuador. So I'd been planning to go abroad this past summer for a while. Most of college, we kind of planned that this was the plan. And I got connected with the CMA in Grove City, which is where I attend church there, and talked with some missionaries. The plan was originally Spain, and I remember thinking, okay, if I don't go to Spain, I'm going to go to Ecuador. And I don't know why I thought that, but that was just the thought process. And Spain didn't work out, didn't have a peace about it, and I wasn't really going to be able to serve there at all. I wasn't going to be able to really help. So we transitioned to Ecuador. Last minute kind of, and I actually secured my internship the night I got back from spring semester. So it was like May 14th or 15th, and I got on a plane on like the 26th or 27th of June. So it was like a really fast turnaround. Another thing you need to know about me before I talk is that's my grandma. I call her Mangi, so if I say Mangi, just substitute grandma in. That's her. She was diagnosed with dementia in between my sophomore and junior senior year of high school. And I'm a COVID senior, so when COVID hit, my senior year stopped. And at that same time was when she was starting to get progressively worse. So at that point, she was going to start to need full-time care, someone there all the time. And because I was really free from March of 2020 to August when I left for Grove City, it was decided that they were going to employ me as one of her caretakers. So I took a nurse type role. I did everything that any of her other employed caretakers did. So I did that from March of 2020 up till this past June when I left for Ecuador. So I spent a lot of time with her, lots of watching movies and cuddling, and then I'd feed her and do all this stuff as well. And anyone here that knows us or saw me with my grandma, we were incredibly close. And even though she couldn't speak a lot or didn't communicate that well, we communicated really well together. And she was very truly one of my best friends. She was awesome. So it's June 24th, and I'm leaving for Ecuador in less than 48 hours. And I'm at the side of my grandma, Mangi, in the hospital, listening to her breathe. And we've been told she has hours left. So my life is just engulfed by these ticking clocks. I'm counting down the hours till I leave the country. And then we're also watching the last couple hours of my grandma's life unfold. Also, while this is happening, Ecuador is in the middle of violent protests in the capital of Quito, which is where I'm supposed to fly into in 48 hours. So there's a level 3 travel advisory over the country, which basically means the US government isn't going to stop me from going, but they want me to know that if I go, I might not be allowed into Ecuador, I might not be allowed back out of Ecuador, the US government might not let me back into the US if things get worse, I could die, they want to let me know that, but they won't let me, they won't stop me yet because it's not travel, it's not level 4. So I'm sitting there with her, and it's kind of one of those moments I think we've all had where I was just like, God, what are you doing? I don't understand why this now? What am I supposed to do? Why would this be the plan? Why would this be the best possible plan? Why is this happening? I thought this was what I was supposed to do. And I did get to go. I left on time. So my grandma passed away on Saturday. And Sunday, my grandfather and the rest of my family drove me to Pittsburgh, and I got on a plane. And through Ecuador and processing that there, processing that when I came back, and the fall semester that I'm currently in at Grove City, processing it through that, I feel like God's answered a lot of questions for me about why that was the way that it was. And I have an understanding now of why that happened and how that actually displays a lot of God's goodness. And it's my hope that sharing that with you guys will be able to see that as well. Starting with just the fact that she did pass away Saturday. I was there for the whole thing. My whole family is here, and we all got to be at the apartment together and spend that day together. So that was just God's grace in itself that my dad didn't have to drive me alone to the airport while she was still passing away. I got to say goodbye. So I left, got to Ecuador. This is Manta. It's beautiful. I thought that Manta was going to be a small town. Manta, Ecuador it's a coastal city. So if I go back, actually I should show you this. So that's South America. Ecuador's the gray one. So it's in between Colombia and Peru. And then that's Ecuador, and Manta's right on the coast. So it borders the ocean. So it's a city in the province of Manabí, and it's known for its beaches, its seafood. It has a college there. It's pretty massive, and I thought going in it was going to be this small little Ecuadorian town. I even looked at pictures online, so I don't know why I still thought that, but I greatly underestimated it. It is humongous. I can't even explain to you guys. It's gigantic. It's one of the largest coastal cities in Ecuador. And it has a really interesting way that it's built up of people and how it's laid out. So you have a lot of different people groups, a lot of people from all over the world there. On the coast, a lot of expats live there, so a lot of people that come in from other countries live on the coast. The coast is very built up. They live in penthouses there and gated communities. There's nice restaurants, there's skyscrapers, there's beautiful beaches. It's very nice. Most of Manta looks like the video I'm going to show you guys next. It's kind of the middle class area or just a regular street. That's how most families live. And then there's also lower income housing kind of on the skirts of Manta, but it's still very much part of the city. And they live in places that are made out of plywood and sheet metal, things like that, which I'll show you guys kind of later. So this is what most of Manta looked like.
¿Qué estaban haciendo hoy día en Shekinah? ¿Nada? ¿Cuándo ustedes hagan deberes? ¿Viernes en la noche o?
En la tarde.
Ay,
O los sábados. en la
o los
mañana.
sábados? Okay.
Y a mí solamente ya me dejaron hacer un papelote.
Nada más.
Sí, un papelote y nada más. Con 3 preguntas.
No,
De las preguntas que yo hice a ustedes que si
So when I lived there with the Easons. They're up on the screen. So that's Will and Amanda, and then their 2 kids, Selah and Emery. I lived with them for all of the 5 weeks. That's my bedroom, and then that's the view from my room. Yeah, they were awesome. They moved there 8 years ago from Georgia State, yeah, I spent most of my time with them just learning what their life is like being full-time missionaries there. I served at their ministry there, and also they just like welcomed me in as part of their family. So I ate dinner with them every night. I spent a lot of time with Selah and Emery. Selah and Emery helped me with my Spanish because they're both completely fluent, entirely bilingual, which is pretty amazing. So yeah, the Easons are awesome. While I was also there, I also spent time with 2 female missionaries. So the ones on the top, that's Kiki and Anna. That's us at the beach. Yeah, I spent time with them. They're both in their 30s and they're single female missionaries that serve in Manta. Most days there were spent at the Easons Ministry, Bonsai, that's the logo for it, which was held at the Baptist church that I would attend on Sunday. So during the week it's used for Bonsai, then on the weekends they use it for church stuff. It's Monday through Thursday, like noon to 5:30, so that was my work schedule. We had about 20 kids any given day. Those are some of them. We would pick them up from school because their school gets out at like noon. So you go and you pick them up, and then we would have lunch with them and recess. We'd do tutoring for a couple hours and do all of their homework with them. Devotional time, recess, snack, and then we drive them all home. So we pick them all up and then we drive them all home. Yeah, and I was in the 1st through 4th grade classroom-ish, but they're kind of loosely based. So that's Estrella, that means star in Spanish, and then that's Guadalupe, and then down in the corner is Baleska and Carolee. And I worked with all of them and got to meet them. They were so cool. Yeah, so why places like Bonsai are so important. Bonsai is essentially a tutoring program there. The kids come and they do all their schoolwork there and they learn. And sometimes we have students from the private schools that are older in high school come in and help tutor, which is a good community outreach for the high school students as well. And why it's so important that we have places like Bonsai is because how the Ecuadorian school system is worked out. So how it works is when you graduate high school, you take a test, like we take the SAT, but depending on what you get on that test depends what you can major in college. So if you score high, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, things like that. But if you score low, you don't have those opportunities. You might not be allowed to go to college at all, or if you do, you're going to have to go for the low income options. So that makes it really tricky, as you guys would imagine, because what you have is doctors and lawyers that can pay for tutoring, they can be there for the kids, things like that. So they just have more doctors and lawyers, and kind of goes down the line. And then you have the things on the opposite end where you have a lot of parents in Ecuador that are illiterate. So they're trying so hard for their kids, but they cannot help them with their schoolwork because they can't read and write. So then how are their children expected to do any better on the tests that they have to do? So there's a real problem with cyclical poverty in Ecuador and in Manta, which is why it's so important to have tutoring programs like Bonsai. That's why the Easons Ministry is a tutoring program foremost, is because of that. And Manta doesn't have a lot of tutoring programs, so they need more, which makes Bonsai so much more essential. So this is Jonathan. He's 10. He's who I worked with most days. I was really humbled by Jonathan's patience with me and his humility. Jonathan speaks better Spanish than me. He reads better than me. He writes better than me. I barely speak. I'm not fluent by any means. So for me to go in every day and try to teach him how to do his homework, he had to sit there and wait for me to put together sentences, or sometimes I'd have to like show him without using words because I didn't have them. And like he's 10 and he would just sit there and he would just wait for me. And I think it really came from the fact that Jonathan wasn't as interested with like using my knowledge and getting it done so much as like he was so excited that I was paying attention to him, and he was so excited that we got to build a relationship. So it was more about that. He just liked spending time with me, and he also liked making fun of my Spanish and helping me learn. But it was much more about that than him just like, okay, how fast can I get my homework done so I can do everything else? Yeah, so this is him speaking a little bit.
¿Cómo se llama? ¿Sí? ¿Cuántos años tienes?
10.
10. ¿Y dónde vive?
En Miraflores.
He's so cute. Yeah, and then this video, I'm just going to show you guys the one, but this video is the worship band at the Baptist church that I attended, which is where we also had bonsai. So some things that I took away from Ecuador and some things that I really noticed about the culture there and the people there. One, what I was saying with Jonathan, they are so relational and they're so giving with their time. I really expected going in that they weren't going to, I figured they were going to be friendly with me, but I really wasn't expecting them to give a lot because I was coming for a month and I barely speak the language. It was essentially I was there to, help in the background and to get better at Spanish, but I didn't really expect them to welcome me in the way that they did. And they were just so welcoming and they were so excited. And as you can see, like they took pictures with me. I went to the mall and played Dutch Blitz with them because that's what you do in Ecuador. I went to a wedding and Nellie down in the corner with me on the very bottom in the blue, she worked in the same room with me at Bonsai and she works there full time. And after the first time she met me, she hugged me and she tried so hard to communicate with me even though she doesn't speak English. I went to the beach with her. The people there, they were so kind and they were so excited that I wanted to have a relationship with them, and I was so excited that they wanted to have a relationship with me. And I think that's really special about the people there is how willing they are to connect with others. And also with their time, things would start and they wouldn't have an end time. So I'd go to youth group on Fridays at 7 and they're just like, oh, it's over when it's over. And things the wedding went on for a very long time. And also I can't remember an Ecuadorian once picking up their phone to see what time it was. They don't do that. So they're really just present with each other and they really just use time wisely. Even you see that reflecting in their work schedules. They work hard, but they don't work all the time. And they they'll take off at 12 and they'll go get their kids from school and they'll go eat lunch with them and then come back to work. Things like that where they really value spending time together and spending time wisely. This is this is Cristobal and he's dancing with Selah at the wedding. That's a little bit more of Ecuador. That's where, that's a community that's kind of more on the outskirts. So you can't see it that well, but those are where you get sheet metal houses, things like that. It's still very beautiful. And then those are some of the beaches as well on the coast. So the other thing that I really took away from my time in Manta was just how beautiful the diverse church is. It was so cool to go to the church services in Spanish and to meet these people and them trying to speak English with me a little bit and me trying to speak Spanish, praying with them, things like that. The church is so diverse and it's so broad. And I think every culture or every community you go into has different ways that they are struggling with sin, but they also have different ways that they're expressing the goodness of God, and all of those look different, and that's what diversity is, right? So just the food and the music and different ways that God shows goodness through their community that we just don't have there because that's not our community, but we have different ways that we express it, right? And those are also good and beautiful. And I just think it's really exciting that we have the opportunity with technology and different things like that, that you don't have to travel the whole way to Ecuador to see what this is like. We have so many resources that we can learn and appreciate what the diverse church looks like right where we are, which is so cool. Those are some of my friends there as well. So they were awesome. Lastly, just reflecting back on like my personal journey there and looking back on everything that happened before I left. I remember many people commenting either before I left or when I came back, like, wow, that was so brave of you, your family and you, like, everyone's so strong, like that, wow. And I just remember feeling like, and I still do, like, that is not true. I am not brave at all, and I was most certainly not brave when we drove to Pittsburgh on Sunday. But I think the difference between obeying God and not obeying God is a trusting love in him, and then also an understanding that that love does require sacrifice. So trusting love that I have a relationship with the Lord, and I trust that he loves me, and he's going to be there for me, and he's going to provide for me, even when it's dark. And then also understanding that that love also requires sacrifice on my part, just as Christ did for us. So I video chatted with my trip advisor from Envision before I went, and I was kind of telling her, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, the protests, I don't even know if they'll let me into the country. What if I get to Pittsburgh and they won't let me on the plane? What if my grandma passes away? What if she doesn't pass away? Like, how is this possibly going to work? This feels really chaotic, and I don't know what the right decision to make is. And I think the advice that she gave me was, it's something I'll carry with me forever, and it really impacted my decision in the long run to decide to go. And she said something to the fact of, God will get you there if you are meant to be there. But God is not surprised by any of this. He's not surprised. This was the path. He knew this was the path. He knew it was the path when you decided on Ecuador instead of Spain. He knew it when you were accepted, when you bought plane tickets, when your grandma got sick when you were in high school. He knew that this was going to happen and it was going to unfold this way. It's not your job to carry all these things, and it's not your job to, it's not your job to get to Ecuador. It's your job to get in the car and drive to the airport, and then it's your job to get on the plane and then get on the next plane. It's God's job to do all that stuff. You don't have to carry all that stuff. It's your job to be obedient. It's your job to obey to what he's called you to, and trust that he's going to get you there if you're meant to be there. And I think that's a really interesting part of moments like those where we've all had, where it feels like the world is crumbling apart, that in those moments where we have to actively trust and obey in the Lord, that those are the moments where we really vividly see him moving. 1 Chronicles 21:24, David is building an altar for the Lord, and someone offers to pay for all of it. And David's response is, no, I insist on paying the full price. I will not take for the Lord what is yours, or sacrifice a burnt offering that costs me nothing. And what he's basically saying, right, is like, well, if I don't do anything for it, if I don't sacrifice anything, if I don't prioritize the Lord myself, then how is that actually me loving him at all? I think that's what he's saying from it. David is saying it's no good loving someone if you don't sacrifice for them at all. I don't really know if that's love. If you aren't choosing them first, or you aren't choosing something first, then is it really a priority? I think it'd be really easy for me to love a God who always gives me what I want, but I also don't think I would want that God, because that would be me then. I chose in that moment, with the encouragement and support of my family and my trip advisor, the people at Envision, to obey. And I'm really thankful I did, because I think, as you guys can see, it was a really special month in my life, and I trust that I was able to serve the people there, and I know that they definitely served me and encouraged me. But it was also really hard as well. Leaving was really difficult, and I know my family really struggled, and I really did. And I missed my grandma's funeral, and I will never get that back. That's something that I sacrificed. I'll never get that. But the goodness of God is not that things will never be difficult or I'll never lose anything. It might be more difficult. But the goodness of God is that he's the only possible salvation in these things, and that also he's the only one that can bring good out of the difficulty and suffering that we endured and how this worked out. Just like Isaiah 6:9 says, I may sacrifice, but I know God's going to redeem those sacrifices, and he's going to bring good out of them, just as he did with his sacrifice on the cross. So what can you guys do about it? What does it mean for you guys? I'd encourage you to pray for the gang activity and parental situations in Ecuador. Ecuador is beautiful. It has many good things about it. But also there is a reality of sin there, just like there is anywhere else in the world. There is gang activity and drug dealing. A lot of the times it's not violent towards the communities in the everyday basis, but it does get violent, and it affects a lot of families individually, even if it's not ravaging the streets all the time. So be praying for that. And also parental situations in Ecuador. There are a lot of good parents there that want to care for their children, and they can't read or write, or they have to work so many hours that they can't be around to provide their children places to go. So thankful they have places like Bonsai where children can go. But be praying for those parents, because I'm sure they're exhausted just like any other parent I've talked to. Also be praying for cyclical poverty and the Ecuadorian school system. There are perks to their system, but there are also a lot of pitfalls, and families do just get stuck in that cycle, and it's hard to get out. Be praying for the Easons. And for Selah and Emery, I know one thing that the Easons told me when I left was they thanked me so much for spending time with Selah and Emery, because they said a lot of times they get people that come in and they're so excited to go spend time with the poor and impoverished children, but they don't pay attention to Selah and Emery at all. And Selah and Emery are so sweet. They were so kind, and they need God's goodness and his kindness like anyone else. So just be mindful of that in your prayers, and then also whenever you're interacting with others, just it's really attractive sometimes to draw towards the dramatic ministry situations, but we always have ministry situations right in front of us. There's always people to love right in front of us who need it just as much as anyone else. And then also, you guys can donate to Bonsai, so that's the link. If you type in Bonsai Inkalink, Bonsai Ecuador, it will come up. It's really cool. You can go and see all the children on there, and you can sponsor a child directly. I met every single child on that on the webpage. So if you guys want to know more about them, I met all of them. I played soccer with them. Most of them are in that picture with me. They're really good kids. And if you provide for them, that pays for notebooks and backpacks, things like that. That pays for their food that they eat there every day, and they eat a lot of food. I encourage you to just go look on their website, see what they're doing. And then lastly, I just want to thank you guys as a church for supporting me. You guys really blessed me and helped me to get there financially, and then also with prayers and supporting my family back here through a really difficult time. A lot of you guys were at the funeral and things like that. So I just thank you guys so much for how much love you've poured out on my family through that whole situation as well. And then also, my dad was handing out stickers. If you didn't get one, it's Bo Young's fault. Go yell at him and get a sticker. But they say, Jesu Cristo basta, which means Jesus Christ is enough. It's a really beautiful worship song if you guys look it up. It's by Un Corazon, which means like one heart. So that just means Jesus Christ is enough. And I made those for you guys as a thank you. for just, how you supported me and for listening to me today. Thank you guys. That's it.